Hey YouTube, it's Zoe, or Read by Zoe, and today I'm going to do my January wrap-up and February TBR. I read 14 books in January, which I'm very proud of, and let me share them with you. The first book that I read in January was The Goddess Inheritance by Amy Carter, the last book in the Goddess Test series. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I really did not like it. Actually, the only book that I liked in the series was the first book, The Goddess Test. I feel like the main character in the first book was so strong and independent and a kick-butt character, but from that point of the first book, she just declined, and especially in the last book she was whiny and insecure and did the exact opposite of what she was supposed to do. The second book I read was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, loved it, definitely made up for the terrible first book that I read. It is all about video games, but it's set in a dystopian climate, different from anything else I've ever read. It focuses on video games, and I'm not much of a gamer, but my entire family are really big gamers, so I grew up around D&D and a bunch of different video games. I knew a lot of the references in the book. I felt so cool. The third book I read was Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it, obviously. I had such a fun time reading it. I didn't want it to end, and I connected to Emily, the main character, so much. During the summer, she is pushed to experience new things, and she meets a cute boy, and she has cool friends and does cool things, and it had that Morgan Matson thing where there's a bunch of playlists in the book. The fourth book I read was Confessions of a Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, but it was very different from what I was expecting. I've seen the movie version, which is set in New York, several times, but apparently the actual book is set in London, and it's very different from the movie, which I didn't know going into it. I was just thrown. I was like, what's happening? Why is she British? I'm so confused. But I ended up loving it. I loved that it was set in London. The fifth book that I read was Someone Like You by Sarah Dessen. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I have had this book on my bookshelf for 5 years. I didn't really like it. It was really boring. It all felt like nothing was happening. The sixth book that I read was Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. Again, it was very different from anything else that I've ever read. It was time travel and historical fiction and romance. I'm also watching I was watching the book along with reading the book along with watching the TV show on Starz, and I love the TV show. I am so excited that they made it into a TV show, and it's so good. The seventh book was Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I had to read it for my children's literature class, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Alice was just a very annoying person, and I don't really like the whole nonsensical writing of everything. I liked it at first, but then it kind of dragged on a little bit too much for me. The next book that I read was Being Audrey Hepburn by Mitchell Kriegman, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. I felt like the author, Mitchell Kriegman, was trying very hard to be hip, or with the lingo that these kids say nowadays. The worst thing was his texting, when the two characters were texting one another and they used like LOL and smiley face, like one of those weird smiley faces with like every single thing that they said. Also, I just didn't like the story in general. I felt like it was very cliche. The next book that I read was Amazing Amy Tattletale by whoever was the person who wrote it. It came in my Blu-ray with Gone Girl, which, FYI, if you have not seen or read Gone Girl, the movie or the book, definitely read it and watch it and live it and love it. It is a story from the story Gone Girl. The story was basically congratulating the parents for their job well done, and it was so funny. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Shopaholic Takes Manhattan by Sophie Kinsella, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. I feel like the series is just getting better and better. Sophie Kinsella is such a funny writer. The next book was Yes Please by Amy Poehler, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I read and listened to it. I used my free 30-day trial on Audible to listen to this. I love how soothing her voice is. She makes me just feel so relaxed when she talks, but also I laughed so much. She goes off on weird tangents in the audiobook format that doesn't have to do anything with the book. She just ends up talking, and there are guest appearances from different people who have little segments in here. The next book that I read was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which I had to read for my children's literature class, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I love all of the different sisters. I don't really love Amy. Amy was not my fave. I did not like her, and also Meg was a little boring. But Beth and Jo, the 13th book that I had to read was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and this I had to read for one of my classes. It was obviously not a type of book that I would just pick up randomly and choose to read. It was following a spiritual journey, which I was really not in the mood for. I was in the mood for contemporary, like some chick lit or something like that, and I got this type of book. To be honest, I did not read all of it. I did SparkNote part of it because I just did not want to read it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because what I did read, I did enjoy. It was written interestingly, but I will never reread this book. I didn't even read it, all of it, the first time. And the last book that I read in January was Shopaholic Ties Knot by Sophie Kinsella, the 3rd book in the Shopaholic series. So now onto my February TBR. I love February, one of my favorite months, because my birthday's in February. It's on the 10th and I'm going to turn 19. 19 isn't a very interesting age to be. It's just kind of in between 18 and 21 where nothing really happens in this little gap. But it's okay. I'm going to turn a year older and I'm going to be wiser, maybe. I have 4 books on my TBR, and the first book is The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. I have to read this for my children's literature class. The next book that I'm planning on reading is Shopaholic and Sister by Sophie Kinsella, the next book in the Shopaholic series. Then I'm planning on reading Just One Day by Gayle Forman, and the last book that I'm planning on reading in February is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, the first book in the Harry Potter series. I am rereading this series this year, hopefully, planning on it, and I'm currently reading this book. I'm 100 pages in. I pretty much have this entire first book memorized, so I'm kind of just skim reading it. So that was my wrap up and TBR. I hope you all enjoyed, but before we go, I wanted to tell you about this awesome new app called Libib, which you've probably already heard about. I know a lot of booktubers are doing reviews and videos on this app, but they reached out to me and asked for me to do my own review on this, and that's what I'm going to do today. I was a little apprehensive to do this because they said it's a mix between Goodreads and Twitter, and I was like, I have Goodreads and I have Twitter, why would I need a combination of the two in an app? But actually, I really enjoy it. It's not really like Twitter. You can post like status updates and stuff like that, and you can follow other people, but it's mostly like Goodreads. The thing though is that it is focused more around lists, which they call libraries, so you do everything with different libraries, which I really enjoy. I love making lists. I make lists of videos I want to film, of things I need to do for the day, and also books that I need to read. On this, I can have it all online, and it syncs both between the app and the website. So here's the Libib app. As you can see, I have 4 different libraries: books I read in 2014, books I read in 2015, which I'm currently updating, my favorite book to movie adaptations, and my to be read pile. So I'll just click on this one right here, and then I'll click on this. And this is kind of like a Goodreads page where it tells you the description of the book and you can add a review. I'm going to click options right here, and as you can see, you can add your rating. The cool thing about Libib is that you can put 0.5 stars. So you can put like 4.5 instead of putting 4 and then in your description and your review saying like, oh, I actually give it a 4.5. You can actually give it a 4.5. And also back here you can put your status, so kind of like Goodreads where it says like want to read, reading, or has been read. Here is not read, in progress, abandoned, and completed. I love the abandoned though, because like I said in my last video, I sometimes quit books just because I'm not feeling it at the moment, and here I can actually put that down so I can look at all the ones that I abandoned, and maybe if I want to go back and read it, I can. So those are just 2 of my favorite things. As you can see, it is kind of like Goodreads in that way, but I just feel like they improved upon some things that I wish Goodreads has changed. And if you want to add me on Libib, I am read by Zoe. So now I am actually done with this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please request any videos you'd like me to make in the future down below. Also remember to follow me on Libib, Goodreads, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, I said that already, all of those things, and I will see you all later. Bye!